After you watch this video, you will crave hard work. Now, something I've realized is there's two kinds of fun. There's constructive fun. These are a lot of times the more wholesome activities like going camping with friends or family, or a social event, or a game or whatever, right? And then there's destructive fun. These are things that are things like scrolling, things like playing video games, mainly video games, especially video games by yourself, and eating junk food and sitting around and being lazy and things like that. Now, the way you can tell the difference between these two kinds of fun is you have to ask yourself the question, what kind of value do you gain from these things? Right? So destructive fun doesn't give you any value, right? Eating a bunch of sugary, unhealthy junk food gives you little to no value, right? If you're on bulk, maybe you can cope enough and say, oh, I need these calories, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, eating junk food and being lazy and watching stupid garbage on YouTube and TikTok, that's destructive. That's not giving you any value. In fact, it's actually taking away value from your life, because scrolling and consuming content often messes up your motivation and makes it difficult for you to motivate yourself to do things. And that's the point I'll get into more detail later. But doing a more constructive fun thing, like a social event, and I'll even say video games are in a weird gray area to where video games can be destructive, right? If you're playing with people you don't really like, where you're just playing video games, you're addicted and you're spending a ton of time on them, and you're not doing what you need to do in your life, and you're using them as an escape and you're using them as a distraction, then yes, that's destructive. But if you use them as a constructive thing, where maybe like once a week, you and your very, very close friends you actually like and respect, and they actually give you value, will hop on a call together and you'll play like an hour of video games, then I would say that's fine. In fact, I would say that's actually pretty constructive and wholesome, as long as you're not staying up super late and doing bad habits and things like that. Then yeah, I'll say that's somewhat constructive. So I'm not anti video game, but I'm anti playing video games like a goon, if that makes sense. But yeah, the reason I'm making this discretion is I've realized that destructive habits that are fun, right, that are don't give you any value, destroy your motivation, your desire to do hard work. Because think about it, right? If you are playing a bunch of video games and laughing and having fun, your dopamine receptors in your mind are going crazy, right? Because video games, especially like stimulating video games, like shooter games, like Minecraft isn't very stimulating, of course, but things like Siege and Fortnite and things like that, those are very, very stimulating, and that causes the dopamine receptors in your brain to actually like go crazy, and dopamine levels absolutely skyrocket. And when that happens, when you have this huge spike in dopamine, of course you don't want to come back down. You don't want to stop playing video games, right? So when you eventually do stop, your dopamine actually doesn't dip back down to where it was when you start playing video games. Your dopamine actually dips down below when you start video games. And what this does is it creates a desire, a motivation for more video games, right? But what it does not do is create a desire for doing something difficult, because when you do something difficult, it actually lowers your dopamine more than it actually lowers dopamine below when you start. And then when you finish a difficult task, it raises dopamine up above where you started, above baseline dopamine, right? And so by doing these very stimulating, very fun habits, and the reason I keep doing air quotes for fun habits is because, think about it, right? If you're doing something that's fun and you feel guilty about it afterwards, that's not really fun, is it? Right? When you feel bad about yourself after doing something that's that's pleasurable, you're not really having much pleasure. You're having like 30 seconds of pleasure, and then you're not having any pleasure. You're having actually like misery. That's not very fun. That's actually like it's like stupid when you think about it, that your mind convinces you that it's a good idea to trade hours of guilt for 30 seconds of pleasure, right? That's why I keep doing air quotes when I say fun, because it's really not fun. Yeah, but when you do these things, it destroys your desire and your motivation to do actual hard work, right? And so if you want to become more disciplined, if you want to start working harder, then doing these very stimulating habits aren't good for you. And you really shouldn't be doing that if you want to become more disciplined, if you want to become a better version of yourself. So you have to use willpower and discipline to resist doing these bad habits. And I'll get into more detail about this in a second here, but using willpower and discipline is a skill like any other, right? And it has to be leveled up. So you can't just snap your fingers, go on a dopamine detox, and stop doing all the bad habits, right? For some people can, but most people can't, right? And so what you have to do instead is don't cut out all dopamine, because what's going to happen is you're going to be really bored out of your mind, and you're going to like really crave stimulation because your dopamine receptors aren't used to not having stimulation, and you're going to crash, and you're going to spend like all day one day doing absolutely nothing but video games and scrolling and eating junk food, right? So instead what you need to do is you need to slowly but surely progressively like undo the damage that these addictive habits have done in your life. So what this looks like is, if you're addicted to video games and you play 4 hours of video games every single day, instead, maybe pick one day of the week where you don't play video games at all, right? And that day is probably going to be pretty miserable, but it's only one day out of the week, right? And so you're probably thinking like, oh, I'm not going to make any progress like that. I'm never going to quit video games if I only make it one day. Yeah, but if there's 30 days in a week, 30 days in a month, and of that month you've played 4 hours of video games every single day, right? So that's over 100 hours a month. I mean, by making one day out of that week where you remove, what is that? 4 weeks in a month. Where you remove 16 hours of your huge amount of time that you spend on video games, that's progress. And what you eventually end up doing is make it 2 days a week, right? If you say that Monday nights you don't play video games anymore, but every night of the week you do, make it so that Sunday night you don't play video games anymore, and Monday. And then you make it so that Tuesday night you don't play all 3 of those days you don't play video games anymore. And you keep slowly but surely leveling up week after week, month after month, and in some cases maybe even year after year. And eventually, you're not going to have a desire for video games anymore. Eventually, you only play video games one day a week, and it's not that bad and it doesn't have that tight of a hold on you, and you can just say, okay, I'm done playing video games, and you stop. Right? That's exactly what I did, and it's very, very, very effective. So yeah, basically all you have to do is remove the distractions, remove the things that are going to take the motivation and desire to do hard work. Now, this whole video I've been talking about how you make more motivation for doing something difficult. But you're never going to have 100% motivation for doing something difficult, are you? No. There's going to be days, there's going to be moments where you don't feel motivated. For example, I love going to the gym and I love getting up early. I'm a morning person, and so I've started working out pretty early in the morning before school. And I'm going to tell you that this morning and the morning before, I had very, very little motivation for the gym. I really, really didn't want to. I really wanted to just sleep in and get some extra rest. But I had to discipline myself and tell myself that, no, I told myself that I would work out this morning, so I'm going to work out this morning. But for a lot of people, they don't really have that skill. I didn't get this skill of discipline and forcing myself to do hard things until pretty recently in my life, right? So for most people, that's not really achievable. It's not really, I wouldn't say achievable. That's not in their reach of having, a pretty good amount of discipline. For a lot of people, just waking up early is a lot of discipline, let alone going to the gym. So you can actually apply the same concept of discipline that we did earlier in the video to motivation. And so what you can do is you basically just progressively overload discipline, just like a video game, right? Life is a lot like video games. And if you start a video game, you're not going to start at the final level of the game and take down the final boss, right? You're going to want to level up first. You're going to want to increase your I don't know, like your attack, or your level up your weapons or whatever before you go kill the final boss. So what this looks like in real life is, before you become super disciplined and a super hard worker and running a marathon every single day for 100 days or whatever, instead what it looks like is starting out, setting your alarm 20 minutes earlier than you usually do, and doing a little bit of reading in the morning. That's what it first looks like. And then slowly but surely, it'll turn into an extraordinary level of discipline. I have barely started this journey of leveling myself up and becoming disciplined, right? I'm going to make a ton of mistakes, and I already have made a ton of mistakes in my journey. And you're going to make a ton of mistakes too. But the point is leveling up, continuing to progressively overload what you do in your life, right? For me, I've been doing ice baths this winter, and that is a level of discipline that it took a while for me to get to, because in the past I would have never been disciplined enough to do ice baths. I'm barely disciplined enough to do it now. It takes a lot of willpower and a lot of discipline to get into an ice bath, right? For a lot of people, that's not achievable. When I talk about the fact that I do ice baths with a lot of people, almost no one I know that relates. One person I know has done ice baths occasionally, and that's it. Right? It's just not something that most people do. And so for you watching this video, unless you're like more disciplined, unless you're like David Goggins, you can probably relate to needing to progressively overload. Because for a long time for me, an ice bath, like even a cold shower, was out of the question. I would never have done that, right? It takes slowly but surely, progressively overloading your skill of discipline and willpower. And that's how you can end up craving hard work. That's how you can become a more disciplined version of yourself. It feels kind of long. If you made this far in the video, you're different than most people. Most people don't have the attention span to watch a video like this all the way through, unedited, and I greatly appreciate that. And you should be proud of yourself, honestly. So yeah, that's all I got for today. May God bless you, and stay wild.